Do you want to see one of the most moronic YouTube clips of 2016 so far? And let's be honest, it's got some pretty stiff competition. This was on The View, I believe, yesterday afternoon, yesterday morning. It's The View's Joy Behar. And again, bear in mind, this show gets 3 million viewers every day. That's no small fry. They've got a very large audience of very impressionable people who are also quite stupid. So she gets up there and responds to Donald Trump's comments about the gay nightclub massacre in Colorado by saying that Donald Trump is, quote, working with ISIS to kill us. Let's start this clip.
They also don't have any ties right now between the shooter and ISIS at all.
At all.
They think he, you know, except for one phone call, which everybody reminds me.
Okay, hit pause. So that's one of the other guests on the show saying that Omar Mateen, the Pulse nightclub gunman, had no ties whatsoever to ISIS. He only called cops during the massacre to pledge allegiance to ISIS. He only pledged allegiance to ISIS on Facebook during the massacre. And the Islamic State also claimed responsibility for the attack. But again, nothing to do with ISIS. Okay, let's carry on with the clip.
He mentions ISIS, but that doesn't make him tied to ISIS.
I agree.
So
he mentioned a whole lot of folks.
Yes.
He said he was aligned with a whole lot of folks. Listen, nobody's going to know what the answer is. Okay,
The thing about Trump, though, is that he's the recruiter in chief. He is
for ISIS.
He is basically working with ISIS to kill us. They are working together.
Yes.
Just remember what I'm saying.
And why do you say this, Joy?
Because every time you go after the Muslims and you talk about how they shouldn't come into the country and how they're all a bunch of whatevers, you are saying to ISIS, make another video to show people who are sympathetic to your cause. And don't think
hit pause. So she's making the argument that Donald Trump is working with ISIS to kill us. Those are her exact words, because he dares to point out that we have a problem with Islamic terrorism. You know, that's like the equivalent of saying don't draw cartoons of Muhammad because it might trigger, it might upset the precious Muslims, and they might kill us. They might chop off our heads, so we better respect their feelings. Again, completely insane, and it gets even worse. Let's carry on.
I haven't made many videos showing Donald Trump. He is a dangerous menace to the country. And I believe, and another point, one small point about the guns, which to me, I wake up in the morning, I'm so stressed out because people are actually continuing to say, have more guns. Since 2005, half of all mass killings have occurred in this country. In 2005 is when
FBI statistics, every crime statistic you want to look at, mass shootings are down. Not that this has much to do with mass shootings, it has everything to do with radical Islamic terrorism. Continue with the clip.
Ban was lifted during the Bush administration, That is when half of all mass killings started in 2005 since the ban was lifted. So ipso facto, there is a connection to the guns.
Can I also say that I think it's very interesting. It's interesting to me that it's very telling that the first thing they notice about the shooter is that, you know, that he's Muslim. Instead of, like, exactly, you know, and it's that thing where it's...
So she's complaining that the first thing anybody noticed about the shooter was that he was Muslim. And in the background, you hear one of the other guests, I think it's actually Joy Behar herself, say that that's a racial thing to say. First of all, Islam is not a race. May I remind you of that fact? Second of all, of course, we're going to draw attention to the fact that he's Muslim. You had ISIS in their own publications calling for people to hit soft targets, calling for people to carry out stabbings, calling for people to carry out mass shootings, specifically during the month of Ramadan. But again, nothing to do with Islam. So, of course, people are going to draw attention to the fact that he's a Muslim. A matter of, 6 months ago or less, we had San Bernardino, another Islamic terror attack. These things are getting worse because ISIS is calling for them. The shooter pledged allegiance to ISIS. He was a devout Muslim. He used to get angry. He used to get triggered and threaten to kill people at barbecues because a bit of their pork touched his hamburger. I mean, this guy was completely crazy. he was a registered Democrat. You know, he was motivated by a hateful ideology defended and supported by the left, Islam. So obviously we're going to talk about it. We're going to draw attention to it. Let's carry on with the clip.
Very telling to see the assumptions that are made. Hate is hate. We all know it. But it is hard. You have never heard of a mass strangling anywhere you go.
No, that's right. To the gun point.
You don't see mass. You don't see mass stabbings where someone just went crazy with a.
Multiple times a year in China, where guns are more restricted, they have mass stabbings. A major one carried out in 2014, which killed 29 people. In the vast majority of those cases, stabbings are carried out by radical Muslims. So yes, we do have mass stabbings carried out in pursuit of the same cause. Again, total nonsense. Let's carry on with the clip.
And people waited in line to get stabbed.
One guy killed 50 people. How did he do that?
Exactly.
With that rifle.
And I think it's interesting for me being a brown person in the United States. I will tell you, past year or so, since someone announced their candidacy, I was actually now seen as a non-American. Mm-hmm. And that is very hard for me in my day-to-day life sometimes when people see that. That's when you know that something's wrong.
Somebody was mean to her, and she doesn't even provide the specific example of what happened, and she blames it on Donald Trump. The fact that somebody made a racist comment to her over the past, 8-10 months since Trump announced his candidacy, that's Donald Trump's fault. Everything is Trump's fault. The violence aimed at Donald Trump supporters at rallies across the country is Donald Trump's fault. The Colorado shooter, a registered Democrat, a devout Muslim, somebody motivated by a hateful ideology defended and supported by the left. Must be Donald Trump's fault. Total, absolute nonsense from beginning to end, total lies. But it's not just The View that's coming out with this. This is up on Infowars.com right now. Former CIA head, Trump is, quote, aiding and abetting terrorists. The former director of the CIA, Leon Panetta, has said that GOP nominee Donald Trump is effectively helping the enemies of America with divisive rhetoric. Again, whenever you see them use this term divisive rhetoric, that means anyone who is standing up for principles. Anyone. They call it divisive. Total fraud. Appearing on MSNBC, Panetta, CIA head under Obama from 2009 to 2011, said, quote, in 50 years in public life, I have never experienced a major party candidate making the accusations and raising the innuendos that Donald Trump raised, particularly at this moment of crisis. Bearing in mind that Trump basically predicted what would happen in Paris. He predicted what would happen in Brussels. He's been dead on all along. You can argue about his methods for dealing with it. But again, raising innuendos by simply talking about Islamic terrorism. This is the most shocking thing that Panetta has heard in 50 years of public life. Totally overblown. Total hyperbole. He goes on to say, quote, he's not only accusing the president of the United States of treason and collaborating with the enemy, but in many ways what he's saying about restricting Muslims from coming into this country, doing surveillance on Muslim mosques, is basically aiding and abetting the enemy at a time we ought to be unifying. And he goes on to criticize Trump because Trump came out with this tweet in which he said that he posted a link to a Breitbart story, which is that Hillary Clinton had the memo that Obama admin aided group that became ISIS. This is a story we posted up on Infowars.com yesterday, detailing, which we've documented for years, that when the Obama administration went into Syria, went into Libya to fund those jihadist groups, al-Nusra, who later went on to defect, to join, to pledge allegiance to ISIS, that's what helped ISIS grow in the first place. When we say the US government created ISIS, we don't mean out of thin air. They already took the jihadist rebel groups, the extremists that were in that region, gave them weapons, gave them funding. They rebranded and everybody pledged allegiance to them. So yes, Clinton and Obama are directly responsible for ISIS's spread across the Middle East. And that's precisely what Trump is referring to when he links to this Breitbart article, which details this secret memo. And this is the article. The Obama administration supported the terrorist group that became ISIS as the group struggled to gain control of the Syria-Iraq border, where ISIS now claims its caliphate, according to an intelligence report sent to Hillary Clinton. Breitbart News reported Tuesday on a secret classified intelligence report sent to then Secretary of State Clinton and other top US officials in August 2012. The report confirmed that Western and Gulf states are joining with Turkey, who still gives medical aid, gives weapons to ISIS in that same area, joining with Turkey, again, to support ISIS, to support the opposition to Bashar al-Assad. Instrumental in the rise of ISIS. Documented fact. So no matter how much, Panetta blusters about how shocked he is that Trump would even dare make reference to this and that it's the most outrageous thing he's heard in 50 years of public life, the facts are the facts are the facts. You can't get away from that. We had the CFR 3 years ago saying, oh, we should go ahead and join with Al-Qaeda. Let's become their ally because toppling Bashar al-Assad is what's important. It led to the rise of ISIS. It was a disastrous policy, and Trump is perfectly correct to call it out